Good morning. Welcome to the episode of HardFoul. Hope you guys are enjoying. Hope you guys are about to have a great Friday and an even better weekend. Hope you guys enjoying yourself however you are listening, whether it is on iTunes or SoundCloud. Man, I feel like Tech 9. I'm talking so fast right now.
Slow down, bro.
I got, obviously, NBA draft recap to talk about today, and I got some NFL news. No baseball today. Resume that on Monday, and I'll explain why later. But yeah, it's a great day. Real fun draft. It's just you gotta enjoy, and I've said this on multiple times. You have to enjoy the drafts, like every single one of them, even baseball, and you're not even gonna see those guys for 4 or 5 years, unless you have like Mike Trout or Bryce Harper, and you get them a year or two later. But those are abnormalities. Push those to the side. They're kind of like ex-wives, just to the side. So, when you have the NBA draft or the NFL draft or Major League Baseball's draft, they always come out with immediately, I always find it funny, they have two stories they try to push. They always push the draft is a crapshoot, right? Like nobody really knows how these guys are going to turn out, who's going to be great, who's going to be a bust, you know. So that's the first thing they do. And it's evident to some degree by the fact, like you know, Tom Brady was a 6th-round draft pick. Kobe Bryant was the 13th pick in the draft. Like there's cases where Draymond Green was a 2nd-round pick. You can call the draft a crapshoot, you know. And you got Darko Milicic going 2nd overall. We'd like to forget that. Hashim Thabit going 2nd overall. Would like to forget that. The second narrative they always try to push is winners and losers of the draft. Who had the best draft? Who had the worst draft? So, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, and I can kind of figure out. So you just told me nobody knows what they're talking about, and it's a guessing game, but that you won or lost at the guessing game before we even played? I'm confused. Forgive me here. If I tell you that, you know, like I work with kids, right? And there's sometimes homework that it's not that I don't know how to do it, but I don't remember how to explain it the way you explain it to someone who's on a 3rd or 4th grade level. You know, you could sit there and know the answer, know the way to do it, but you learn to do things and figure out formulas in your head based on knowledge you already have. This is why you don't write out your math problems for the rest of your life, but you do when you're learning as a 3rd and 4th grader. You skip steps. So it's you have to explain them. It's like, hey, I know the answer, but I can't explain it to you. And it's always weird to them. They're like, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, neither does this, because I just got told they can't explain it to me, but they know the answer. Like, it just, where it makes sense in terms of like explaining, because where the math problems, because there's an absolute in math. I might not be able to, even if I couldn't explain it, 2 + 2 will always equal 4. You can't tell me these guys are going to be successful or not successful, but then tell me you can't explain why they are not. So, I stand by, there's 2 winners in any time you have a draft. Every single person that gets drafted is a winner. I'm sorry. You take the NBA draft, there's only 60 guys that got to have that feeling last night. 60 of them. You take the NFL draft, there's, 251 guys who get to have that feeling? Baseball, there's a lot. Baseball, they pick up about 1,000 people. Some people don't even know they get drafted. They just get picked, and the team never calls them. Saves them some money for airplane rides. Like, I probably got drafted at some point and just was never called. So, anyone who gets drafted, you won right there. You are doing more and being more successful in your line of work and just your life in general than the majority of the public. The other winner is the fans of bad teams. Like, fans in general, it's really nice to have like the hope factor, which is why we love the draft, because if I don't see you do bad, I'm going to presume you can't do bad. You know, most people don't want, when you're introduced to new people in life, most people don't meet someone and think, oh, I think you're a liar. Oh, I think you're a bad person. You learn that, you know, yeah, maybe they're a bad person. Maybe they're a liar. But generally, unless you are just the most outright pessimist, you don't walk up to new people and be like, yeah, I just think you're full of shit. It's not how it works. But when you're a fan of a bad team, oh, the draft is the best thing ever for you. Because that's your Super Bowl. You sucked. If you're an NFL fan, your team sucked it up for 16 weeks. You had to wake up every Sunday and go to bed miserable.
Go Chargers.
But on draft day, when you have that top 5 pick, you're ecstatic. Because you know that guy's going to change your team. Yeah. Reality is he's probably going to be a bust, and you'll still be sad when you wake up on Sunday, when you go to bed on Sundays. Yeah, you know, go look at the chart online. It's really funny. It shows the number 1 and number 2 pick of like the last 15 drafts, or I think it goes back even farther than that. And there's only like 1 or 2 of them that you can find that both the first overall pick and second overall pick of the NBA draft both actually turned out to be successful players, which means 50% of teams that are terrible, that draft a guy that's supposed to save them, still wake up terrible. So, and then to stack on to, I am a believer in the draft is kind of a crapshoot, because it is. And to sit there and really dig deep enough in, you have to have like Vegas level scouting to really have an idea of what these guys are going to do. Like there's a new Intel commercial where they've got, you know, it's talking about his trajectory and the wind outside and the force that he shoots the ball, and like tries to calculate what kind of player he'll be. That's the kind of research you've got to put into this, which I don't have that kind of time. I don't know who has that kind of time. Ain't nobody got time for that. There's only one guy who I'm like, for sure, that was involved in last night, that for sure I'm like, he's going to be a factor next season. He is going to make a difference next season. And that was a guy involved in a draft day trade. And that's only because Jimmy Butler's already an all-star player. He's already a guy who's put up 20-plus points. And he got traded for prospects. Why? Because the prospects haven't gone bad yet. Whereas his relationship with Chicago, that whole team as a whole, it had gone bad. We'd had seen it gone bad. You know, you meet the new person, you start to see them lie, you start to see them do bad things, you start to justify, maybe they're just a piece of shit. The 2 guys who I really like, Markelle Fultz and De'Aaron Fox, probably won't do that much next year. Like, it's a big adjustment. And the difference between now, there was... I lost track, but I think going up to like 15, 16 freshmen were taken the first 20 picks. So these are 19-year-olds. Now, I'm not that old, but I remember what I was like at 19, and there was nothing about me at 19 ready to take a grown man's shoulder to the chest when some guy backs me down in the post. There was nothing at 19 that I was ready to be like, yeah, I did not even fathom moving out at 19, and these guys are going across the U.S. Like, they will go on 10 out of 12 games on the road and just not see their family for 2 weeks. They will go from playing 40 games to 80 games against grown-ass men who really do not care. Because they're fighting for their paychecks. They're fighting to keep food in their kids' mouth, food on their table. They don't give a damn who you are, and you are just a punk-ass 19-year-old kid as far as they're concerned. You know, talk all about Lonzo Ball. It's like, what's he going to do with the Lakers? What's he going to do with the Lakers? Oh, he makes his teammates better so he can make an immediate impact. No, he can't, because the Lakers are still way too young. Brandon Ingram, you're right. Brandon Ingram is the vet at 20 years old. Julius Randle's the vet at 21 years old. they're still not ready for it. And they want to talk about trading Julius Randle. Why not? Get even younger. 21's too old. I agree. I'm 22. I'm going to jump off a cliff tomorrow. I'm too old. Like, Markelle Fultz, I do believe, could step in and probably get you 14, 15 points a game. I don't think he's going to be efficient. I don't think that team's going to win, especially considering Philadelphia, which, once again, hope's the best thing in the world. Philadelphia has so much hope right now. They got Fultz. They have Embiid. They have Simmons, which is a total of 31 games played from Embiid. Couldn't play back-to-backs. Simmons missed the whole year, and no one's convinced if he can shoot and or score on a consistent basis. And Markelle Fultz won 9 games at Washington. That's your future. Like when you break it down logically, and as a sports fan, we're not logical. I don't know if anybody knows this. Fan is literally just short for fanatic. We're all psychotic. What was another one that I really liked? I really liked what Chicago got back. I really like Chris Dunn. I really like Zach LaVine. I think Zach LaVine's an immediate impact. I don't believe Chris Dunn is. Because Chris Dunn is entering his second year. He's 20 years old. He barely played last year. Like, there is so many off-the-court factors besides, just getting drafted. But we all love hope. We all want to see, once again, unless you're just a raging pessimist, generally nobody looks at the world consistently just glass is half empty. We might during spurts. We might when negative things happen. But generally nobody walks around with the world's just doesn't like me. Things I did really like about the draft. If you want to consider storylines, because, that's what I have to look forward to, is I love the fact De'Aaron Fox went to the Kings, because that means we get him and Lonzo Ball 4 times a year. And what's great about that is that's a real storyline because they're both punk-ass 19-year-olds. They're not going against the 25, 26-year-old guy who's been in the league, who knows how to defend you. They're both going to, it's like that rivalry, the added impact of what LeVar's done for it, the way that De'Aaron Fox's dad has come out this last week, like that's a legitimate storyline between 2 comparable players. No one likes David versus Goliath unless you're just sick. Or at least no one likes the Goliath part of David versus Goliath unless you're just sick. So you get 2 evenly matched guys, comparable situations, going against each other 4 times a year. That's going to be fun. Excuse me. I was not crazy about Josh Jackson in Phoenix. I think as much as I really like Devin Booker and as much as I really like Josh Jackson, I'm really not that crazy about Eric Bledsoe, who it looks like they're going to go into the season with as their starting point guard, because he's not that kind of facilitator. Because I think John Calipari made a great point last night where there's just no point guards left. Like, Lonzo Ball is like touted as this old school, old style point guard. Everybody else is an attack the rim or shoot threes kind of player. Like, there's no longer the 1 through 5. The 1 sets the 2 and the 3 up for scoring. The 4 is a rebounder, defender, and the 5 is your big man, your inside presence. That just doesn't exist anymore. There's just as many big men who shoot threes as there are guards that assist. Like, it is basically positionless basketball, which I will say, if you watch the NBA Finals, that was some of the most skilled basketball you've ever seen in your life, even if the games were terrible. The scores were terrible. The actual play of the game was great. So I'm not crazy about Josh Jackson in Phoenix. I don't see him and Devin Booker necessarily, working as well as a 2-3 wing tandem as most people. A lot of people are giving Danny Ainge grief because, he didn't make a draft day trade. He's got all those picks. What is he doing? He's waiting for LeBron to get old. Like, I don't know why people want to keep beating the same drum and be like, make a trade, make a trade, make a trade. if he didn't do it the first time, he didn't do it the second time, he didn't do it the third time, he didn't do it the fourth time, he's probably not going to do it the fifth time. Saw this joke the other day. It was, it was a married man and a woman. It's like, men will do whatever they say they're going to do. You don't have to remind them every 6 months. Danny Ainge, at some point, will make a move. Y'all don't have to remind him every 6 months. This is who he's been. This is who he's probably going to stay. I really like, even though I know he was disappointed, is I really like Malik Monk in Charlotte. I like the idea of Walker, him, and Nicholas Batum. I always like it with the reason why I think the Warriors work so well is because, yes, you made the case they have 4 scorers. I don't see it as 4 scorers. Draymond is defense, switch army knife kind of player. Durant is the only true scorer. And then Curry and Thompson are ball screen, pick players, and Curry can still get his teammates involved. So they all have different roles that they can do, even though they all have very similar strengths. You could have all these different tools, all these different drills, all these different nails, but you have to have variety in your drills and nails. Otherwise, you're going to the same hole with the same thing, and that just doesn't work. I don't know how I feel about the Knicks pick, and I'll be quite honest. That's because I just don't know the guy very well, but I will give him credit. I'm going to mispronounce his name, so I'm not even going to try. He's French. They showed his flight schedule. He played game 4 of his playoffs in France yesterday. Got here at about 3-4 hours before the draft and is leaving again he left again at 2 or 3 this morning to go back to play game 5. That's determination. That is 36 hours of just basketball. And he's going to show up to right before they do stretch and warm-ups. So he's going to have approximately 4 hours of airline sleep, play 2 basketball games, and get drafted into the NBA. That's a pretty interesting 36, 40 hours. So I don't know much about him. I haven't looked up. I don't do a whole lot of film or research on international players. I know I saw something the other day about the Celtics have 2 or 3 guys who are the stash players who, you draft knowing that you're not going to get them for a few years because they play internationally. I just don't follow the international game that well. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I don't follow it that well. So hope every guy that got drafted, the Fox, Lonzo Ball situation, the guy from New York, those are the things I love. Those are my winners. Things I didn't love as much, Josh Jackson. How the hell do people pick winners and losers and tell me they don't know what they're talking about? Analysts, you're all losers. Yeah. I think I pretty much summed up everything I wanted to in that one. Drafts are great, though. We could draft again. Do it enough, I might get drafted. Be like the baseball team that drafted me and never called. I'm still waiting. Probably got an email lost somewhere. I just say, the last couple days, or this whole week, has been really good. We've had trades. We've had the draft. We've had free agency. There's so many things happening right now. This is why I love doing this. Because when there's actual stories and stuff to talk about, I don't have to sit down on my computer until 1 a.m. thinking, okay, well, what can I pull out today? Well, this guy's girlfriend said that his penis was only 3 inches compared to 6, and that's a big story on World Star because Media Takeout said the other day that's what it. I hate that kind of stuff. It drives me up a wall, and some of that stuff is actually making its way onto ESPN and FS1 where they're having shows and debates about the Rolling Stones cover about LeVar Ball was a headline the other day. I don't care. I don't care. Has nothing to do with actual sports. it's just, I don't want to sound like the old guy, but it's just the media driven and social media world that it's like every small thing, like, what do they say with Snapchat? If you didn't snap it, it didn't happen. If you didn't take a picture, it didn't happen. Like, that's what it's becoming, and it's just a joke. Such a joke. Things that make me sad. My new podcast coming out on Monday. So, I will not lie. I haven't followed it as much as I have in past years. Like I said, I got rid of cable about a month or two ago, so I've had an entirely different experience watching sports. I have the Watch ESPN app, streaming on YouTube, streaming illegally, those kind of things. So my experience and how much sports exposure I've had is different. Plus, my schedule's just changed. I got to commit a good amount of time to this, which does involve watching sports, obviously, like I have. But also for the topics that I want to discuss, I've got to go a little bit deeper into those. So I might exclude, like baseball. I feel really bad. I have not been nearly into this baseball season as much as I have been others. And I've actually been to a few games. But I've been so focused on like NBA headlines, NFL headlines, that baseball has had to take a back seat. And that will change, obviously, now that the draft's over and the NFL free agency is pretty much over. I'm going to start transitioning into more baseball-heavy shows because that'll be the topic of the day. It just will be. I'm not going to be one of these guys who repeat their same 2 or 3 headlines over and over and over again and then just bring on a guest or two to make you feel like you're getting a different view and opinion. No, you're getting the same thing. It's just you're literally just getting someone else's recycled trash. So, haven't paid nearly as much attention to the NFL Top 100 Players list, but I love it. I love the show. I love the concept. I think it's really cool. I've always been someone who is big on how your peers view you. To me, it's the ultimate Kobe LeBron argument. If you ask any player from that era, they would take Kobe over LeBron. And to me, that says a lot. If you get voted a top 10 player by your peers, people got respect for you because they got to go out and compete the same way you do. They got to wake up at the same time you do. Maybe some of them even earlier than you do. Got to put in the same work, probably get paid less, and watch you just whoop their ass. And nobody likes to get their ass whooped. That's just once again, I don't know why pessimist has become such a theme of the day, but no one wants to get their ass whooped. So I went in, I was scrolling through the list, and I was like, okay, I saw this player, and this player. That's who I'm going to make my next topic about because I think this player is overrated, underrated, shouldn't be listed here, should be above this guy, should be below this guy. And I'm like, no, because, a lot of people are going to do that. So I simply was like, well, who's left? And they're going to be debuting the top 10 players on Monday. I believe actually it's Monday and Tuesday. I think they do 10 through 5, and then they do have another show, or 10 through 6, and then another show 5 through 1. Because I know they give the top 10 players, they give them 20-minute segments or 15-minute segments instead of the normal 10. So the 10 players that are left, you've got Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Von Miller, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Khalil Mack, Julio Jones, Ezekiel Elliott, Odell Beckham, and Matt Ryan. So I was like, well, let me rank them for the players that they gave me left. Not that this is my personal top 10, but for what options they gave me, I will rank them. Number 10, Ezekiel Elliott. I think he's number 10. He's going to be the first rookie to ever crack the top 10, but I think 10's about as far as he goes. It was a great season. I personally would not have put him above David Johnson, who was finished number 12, and I definitely don't think he's above Le'Veon Bell, who will show up later on my list. You have, at 9, Odell Beckham Jr., who I think should probably be the number 1 receiver in football. I think he's the most dangerous player in the sport when the football is in his hands. Because the one thing you cannot take away from some guy in a football field is when they have the ball in their hands and you just can't get them. If you can't run, catch, and tackle that guy, I don't care what kind of scheme you play. I don't care who you got on your side, who's coaching you. If you just can't get the guy, you can't get him. And he is the best big play receiver we have in the sport, even more so than Julio Jones. And he's the best player with the ball in his hands, above any other receiver and above any other running back. Le'Veon Bell, he's the best dual threat running back in football. He could get you 100 catches in a season, and he could get you 1,600 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground. He is probably the most complete running back. Him, once again, I bring up David Johnson, who I'm a huge David Johnson fan. He's also ridiculous on Madden. They are probably the most complete running back since LT. At number 7, Antonio Brown, who I think he's only going to fall a few spots. He was number 4 last year. I think he only falls a few spots. I think a couple guys rose up, whereas I think Antonio Brown is at this point, as great as he is, he kind of has like this flatline season where you just know he's going to get 110, 115 catches, his 9-10 touchdowns, and his 1,500 yards. And as great as those numbers are, you just know they're coming, so they don't blow you away. And Marvin Harrison, who I think is a really good comparison, never blew you away because you knew he was going to get his 110, 115 catches, 9-10 touchdowns. But I do think, just like Marvin Harrison, I think Antonio Brown is the most hated receiver in football if you have to play him. Because the difference between him, Julio Jones, and Odell Beckham is Odell Beckham and Julio Jones can have a great game by having 5 or 6 catches, right? So that means if you're a corner, and especially a top-end corner, you're probably only getting beaten by this guy 5 or 6 times a game, right? That means the other 30, 40 times, or even 50 times you guys line up, you get the upper end. You get the upper hand. So you can go into that game and feel like, you know what, I did really well. I competed against one of the best guys at the position. Whereas Antonio Brown, like, you'll see this. I got the Bronco jacket on, full bias, out here. Chris Harris is one of, I hate the fact of he finished like 44, I think, this year, and he was 50 something last year. Like, Chris Harris is one of the 2 best corners in football. I don't care what anyone says. And he got absolutely turned around, whooped, destroyed, beaten, handed game film, and then whooped again when he played Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown had 15 catches on him. I don't think Chris Harris gave up 15 catches the next 5 games. When someone beats you on that routine of a basis, the same way Marvin Harrison did, you just hate that son of a bitch. You do. Because how are you supposed to feel good about that game? Everything that guy did, it might not have been for big play touchdowns, like Odell Beckham, Julio Jones, or T.O. or Randy Moss back in the day. If you are comparing Harrison's time frame, but when you get whooped 10, 12 catches a game for 90 to 100 yards and a touchdown, man, you want to go in the locker room and hit your head up against it. Number 6, Von Miller. I'm biased, so deal with it. He's obviously a top 10 player. I was actually really nice about this, and I didn't put him over the other guy who's going to be on this list, who I think he's better than, personally. Super Bowl 50 MVP, the most dominant outside edge rusher we've had since Lawrence Taylor, and I'll defend that against anyone. And I think he's the best defensive. I think he's tied for the best defensive player in the game. And J.J. Watt's only not on the list because he was injured, obviously. But if J.J. Watt's healthy, he's probably a top 5. He's a top 5 player. Number 5, Aaron Rodgers. There's been 2 QBs in the top 5 each year for the past 5 years, and I think that happens again. Aaron Rodgers had a bounce-back year despite struggling in the middle of the season. Still put up 40-something touchdowns, led the league. Like, once again, when you get to a certain level and people are just like, oh, you're supposed to do this, Aaron Rodgers was on pace for like 32 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, and people thought, it's not that great. And then he had to sit there and throw 4 or 5 touchdowns last couple of games, and he got to like 41-7, and it was like, oh, well, yeah, that's right. Aaron Rodgers is that great. Number 4 is Khalil Mack. I think he'll get it simply because he was the defensive player of the year. Once again, I would take Miller. I'm biased over him. Great player, though. 3 is Julio Jones, the best receiver we've had since Calvin Johnson. And every year Calvin Johnson had comparable seasons to Julio Jones. Calvin Johnson was the top 3 player, or top 4 player, I apologize. How he wasn't number 2, or finished number 2 one year when he had the 2,000 yards. Number 2, Tom Brady. He's been in the top 4 the last 4 years. Just got his 5th ring, even though they do this voting pre-playoffs. But 28 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, gave the biggest middle finger to Roger Goodell. I think the players are going to go behind that. And who knows? If, in typical Patriot fashion, they probably stuffed the ballot box. And number 1, Matt Ryan. Not because I believe he's the best player in the league, but I made this list basing it off of the style that they've had it the last couple years. And if you look at it, the MVP has been number 1 every single year except one, and that was when J.J. Watt went fucking bonkers and he got number 1 over Aaron Rodgers. But otherwise, the MVP, Cam was number 1 over Brady last year. Manning was number 1 when he won the MVP. Rodgers was number 1 when he won the MVP. If you're the MVP of the National Football League, they're probably going to count you the number 1 player of that season. It's kind of how it works. If you have any issues with this list, you can take it up with you can put any comment down below. Email me at my email is hardfoul@dealwithit.com. And yeah. Never heard of him.
What channel is this?
Like it or leave it.
Teamed up.
Whoop whoop. Go check out. No. Yeah. Gotta have fun while you're doing this. Otherwise, it becomes work, and it's already enough work. So I don't need it to be boring work. So that's all I have to talk about today. I did want to make a note though to on Monday's show, I'm gonna be talking about John Wall. Be talking about Paul George, who I don't know what people are smoking anymore. I've heard over the last 3 or 4 days, Paul George is the answer. He's someone that can match up with Kevin Durant. Who the hell? I shouldn't swear so much. Who in their right mind actually thinks Paul George can stop Kevin Durant? I'd like to know. That's what I'd really like to know. If you think Paul George can stop Kevin Durant, I would really like a good explanation. This part's not even going to make it to YouTube, but I need a really good explanation as to why you think that. Like, let me know. My sleeper baseball teams, I have 2. Like I said, I'm going to be getting a lot more into baseball now that the draft's over, free agency's over. The Phil Jackson hype, rumors, Kardashian effect is over. Like, we're getting into some good headlines. My cat's getting irritated. Don't get a cat, guys. They're not a lot of work, but they're a lot of time. You'll understand that a little better when you're older. I'm not even old enough to understand that, but you'll understand it when you're older. So yeah, once again, like we end every show, you guys, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, SoundCloud, iTunes, word of mouth, throw a brick through someone's window with my name on it, slash your friend's tire with my name. Don't do that one. It's really hard to see my name when the tire's deflated. Deflategate. We're on the road to 1 million subscribers. But yeah, you guys, like I said, have a great Friday, have a great weekend, and I will see you guys on Monday.